Hello everybody, welcome to Sports Source, your number one source of sports, and today we're doing an NBA 2011 redraft. Now if you don't know what redraft is, basically we take the 2011 draft class, the same order, and we are redrafted knowing everything we know now throughout players' careers. I think 2011 is a good year because I looked at this draft class intently, and this is a very, very good draft class, very deep draft class, and we're just going to be naming the top 10 because after that, just a bunch of role players. So I guess I'll give some honorable mentions right now that won't be in it. So, Tristan Thompson, Cantor, the Morris twins, Kenneth Faried, Nikola Mirotic, Reggie Jackson, and Etuan Moore are in this draft class, but they will not be in the video because they are not in the top 10 of the redraft. So without further ado, let's begin with the first overall pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, the first overall pick is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, originally they drafted Kyrie Irving, which was a pretty good choice. They got LeBron back. They got that championship with him. He obviously did leave, but I think that we could do better. Now, this was right after LeBron James left, and this team was a total dumpster fire. This team it was just scrapped. There was nothing really left. They needed the best player available. They needed a franchise player to move on after LeBron. I know that this might be an unpopular opinion, but knowing everything we know now, so if this player was drafted and we knew how they were going to develop their whole career just onto the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm going to have to go with Kawhi Leonard. He is a top 10 player in the league. He's one of the best defenders in the league. He is Defensive Player of the Year. He's just an amazing. He was second in MVP voting one year. He's just a very, very amazing player. And, he would be very good on this Cleveland Cavaliers team. He would be an obvious standout as there's no other talent on the team. So, with the second overall pick, it belonged to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, originally they drafted Derek Williams, which was a terrible, 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 terrible pick. I can't emphasize how terrible it was. Now, they had a really bad season. They had one of the worst in the NBA that year. What they needed, they already had Michael Beasley, who just came off a 19-point-per-game season at the small forward position, so they don't need that. They got Kevin Love, prime Kevin Love. This was his second or third year in the NBA, so this was going to be breakout Kevin Love right away. And then, Ricky Rubio was going to enter the NBA because he was playing overseas at the time. So they also had Johnny Flynn. They had Wayne Ellington, Corey Brewer. So this team just needed a very good wing player that could defend and score. And who better than Jimmy Buckets Butler? He is an amazing player, great two-way player. And, there is another player down here, but I think that the fit of Jimmy Butler on this Timberwolves team, which is kind of ironic because he already went to there eventually, but if a rookie Jimmy Butler would have joined this team and his career would have developed how we know it is today, that would have been a killer lineup of Ricky Rubio, Jimmy Butler, Michael Beasley, Kevin Love, and whoever they want to start center. And they're all young and they could grow together. Jimmy really balances out. He's that second scoring option. He brings that defense. Obviously, the locker room chemistry might not be good between Beasley and Butler, but it's a scenario, and I think that Jimmy Butler would have gone second or third overall in this NBA redraft, and he's going to, ironically, go back to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Coming in at number 3 is the Utah Jazz. Now, this was their young core, right? They had just traded Deron Williams for a young Derek Favors. They already had a young Gordon Hayward. They had Al Jefferson and Paul Millsap, who were both entering their prime / already in their prime. So what they needed was a point guard right after they traded Deron Williams. And you already know, Kyrie Irving, you could argue they could have went second, but I think that the fit-wise, it just fits so perfectly with Jimmy Butler on the Timberwolves team and Kyrie Irving on this Jazz team. Him and Hayward have some really good chemistry. Kyrie almost said that they teamed up together in Utah a while back. They also have that Paul Millsap in his prime, Al Jefferson in his prime. Those guys were monsters. You got a young Derek Favors. This team would just be so good and so deadly. They would still need to fill that shooting guard position, but this team would just be so good, and we would get to see a young, healthy Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward duo team up. So next up is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, they had the 4th and the 1st overall pick in this draft because, as you all know, the 1st overall pick originally went to the Clippers, but then they traded, I think it was Mo Williams for that pick before the season started, and that turned to the 1st overall pick, so then they have the 4th pick here. Now, they already drafted Kawhi, and like I said before, they were a dumpster fire. They needed anything they could get. So there are 2 players that I have in mind, but I think that this player, he's one of the fastest heating players in the NBA. He's a sharpshooter, one of the best shooters of all time, and he's a very, very good defender. You already know who I'm talking about. It's Klay Thompson. A Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving duo on the Cleveland Cavaliers would be nasty. Now, yes, they do need some size, but Klay is the best player available, and him and Kawhi would do pretty good together. Klay, obviously a great sharpshooter. Kawhi, a great defender, shot creator. He could play make a little bit. So, this team, a young a rookie Kawhi and a rookie Klay that could grow together. Obviously, we would never see the Splash Bros, which would be kind of sad, but a Kawhi Klay team up on the Cleveland Cavaliers would just be awesome as well. Coming in at number 5, the Toronto Raptors. Now, originally, I don't even know who they drafted, but they had DeRozan at the time, and they had Andrea Bargnani. And you guys are like, Andrea Bargnani, ain't he a bust? Well, this season, just before the draft, the 2010 to 11 season, he averaged 20 points per game. So really, they're just trying to take the best available player, and the best available player actually is a good fit. It's Kemba Walker. He's been an all-star in Charlotte, ripping it up. This man needs some help, and him and DeRozan, they both are kind of inexperienced right now. They both need each other, because DeRozan, he's a good shot creator. Kemba, he's a good finisher at the rim. He's a good playmaker. I think that this duo would be very good. The defense would be very questionable. But a big three of a young Kemba, a young DeRozan, and a decent Bargnani at the time. We'll have to see how injuries go with this scenario. But I think that would be a very good draft pick for him. Get the best player on the board, and yeah. So at the number 6 spot, it is the Washington Wizards. Now, already on their team, they had a young John Wall, who was a former first overall pick. They had Nick Young, who at the time was coming off of a 17-point per game season. They also had Andre Blach, and they also had a young JaVale McGee, who they would then later trade. So there are 2 needs on this team. They need a small forward and they need a center. But I'm going with Nikola Vucevic. He's been playing great on the Magic this season. They might make the playoffs. At the time of making this video, the Heat and the Magic, they're fighting for the 8th seed. But Nikola Vucevic, he will be a great pick and roll partner, a great post player, and I think that him and John Wall would complement each other very well if they were both young and on the Washington Wizards together. So coming at number 7, it's the Charlotte Bobcats. Now this team, who did they have? They had a young DJ Augustine, who was coming off a pretty good season. And that's it. Literally nothing else. This team was very, very bad. So they just need the best player available. And the best player available right now is Tobias Harris. He has broken out this season. He is an amazing player. He is going to be one of my favorite players in the NBA. He's athletic. He can play the 4. He can play the 3. He can score from almost anywhere. He's shown decent playmaking and ball handling skills. I think it's a perfect fit. Charlotte, they need that score. They need that forward on their team. And I think that Tobias Harris would be a perfect fit in this redraft. Coming in at number 8, this one's a little bit tricky. It's the Detroit Pistons. Now, I don't want you to flame me for this pick, but I have them picking Isaiah Thomas. Now, some of you might be saying that he should be higher because he averaged 29 points per game against the Celtics. But if you look what he's doing now on the Nuggets and after the hip injury, it's not very good. I couldn't put him too low on this list because we've seen what he could do. I think that this is pretty fair because, A, the Pistons really needed a point guard. They had a young Greg Monroe who was pretty good. They had an old Ben Wallace. They were trying to transition. They also had old Tayshaun Prince. And they had Rodney Stuckey. Now, Rodney Stuckey was the point guard for them, but I see him more as a shooting guard for them. So, they could have Isaiah Thomas and Rodney Stuckey there, and then the young Monroe. But the second reason is, the injury, obviously, and knowing what we know now, it's a risk for this team. But I think it's the best pick for them. It's a risk. Detroit's known for taking a lot of risks and mostly missing on them. But I think this is just a good pick for them. Isaiah Thomas, he was once good. Hopefully he could bounce back. I don't know. I'm cheering for the guy. But yeah, at the number 8 pick in the redraft, the Detroit Pistons select Isaiah Thomas. And that's kind of funny because the Bad Boys Pistons had that Isaiah Thomas. And this Isaiah Thomas, the midget one, was named after the old Isaiah Thomas. So that'd be kind of cool bringing it all together. That'd be kind of confusing for the fans. And if Isaiah Thomas was to get his jersey retired in this redraft, then that would be a very confusing scenario. But number 8, Detroit Pistons, Isaiah Thomas. Now at number 9 in the NBA redraft, it's the Charlotte Bobcats again. They just picked Tobias Harris with the 7th overall pick. They already had a DJ Augustine who was pretty young, and they have Tobias Harris. So those are kind of their building blocks. Now they need just the best player available. And to me, the best player available for them is Jonas Valancunius. Now, he did decent with the Raptors. I actually really like Jonas Valancunius. But now on the Grizzlies, he's been killing it. He's been averaging like 20 points per game, 10 rebounds. He's been getting the touches they need in Memphis. And I think that he could produce that same kind of efficiency at a younger age when he was a rookie in Charlotte, because they're not really risking anything. They could let Tobias, DJ, and Jonas Valanciunas run the show. I think that this is a very good selection for them. They could develop Jonas Valanciunas into a beast, kind of like the Memphis Grizzlies version of Valanciunas that we are seeing today. And with the last pick in the NBA 2011 redraft, the number 10 pick goes to the Sacramento Kings. Now, they already had a couple players on their team. They had a young Tyreek Evans coming off that Rookie of the Year. They had DeMarcus Cousins, who obviously was coming off a really good year as well, as he is just a monster. He was the best center in the league at one point, so you got that. You also got young Whiteside, who knows if he would have stayed. But what this team really needs is, they already got Tyreek Evans. They also had Bino as their point guard. So what they really need is a wing, and a scoring wing, more specifically. And do you know who's been tearing up the league right now on a team of his own? Bojan Bogdanovic. He's been killing it on the Pacers ever since Oladipo went out. He's been averaging 18 points this season. The Pacers are doing pretty good. He's been a good contributor of that. He's shown that he's a great scorer, great three-point shooter, and I think he would fit really good on this Kings team in this redraft. But what do you guys think of the NBA redraft? There are a couple things that are kind of questionable, like the number 2 and number 3, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving swap. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you want me to see me do more NBA redrafts? And if so, let me know what draft class down below. But that's all for me now. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.